On a rain-soaked evening in rural Tennessee, when Hurricane Delilah's remnants were wreaking havoc across the Cumberland Valley, retired Army Sergeant Marcus Thompson thought he was just trying to get home safely from his late shift at the lumber mill. But when he spotted a tiny German Shepherd puppy being swept away by the raging floodwaters of Mill Creek, he made a split-second decision that would change both their lives forever. What Marcus didn't know was that this wasn't just any ordinary puppy, and what happened in the days following the rescue would reveal a story so extraordinary that it would capture national attention and prove that sometimes fate has plans far greater than we could ever imagine. This is the incredible true story of how one act of courage in the face of nature's fury would uncover a mystery that had puzzled law enforcement for months, and how a puppy with an extraordinary past would repay his debt in ways that no one saw coming. Hurricane Delilah had been downgraded to a tropical storm by the time it reached Tennessee, but the Cumberland Valley was learning that nature doesn't always respect meteorological classifications. What had started as a routine September evening for Marcus Thompson, a 45-year-old retired Army sergeant, quickly became a fight for survival as Mill Creek transformed from a peaceful waterway into a raging monster. Marcus had seen his share of dangerous situations during his 20 years in the military, including 3 tours overseas, but nothing had quite prepared him for the apocalyptic scene unfolding around his pickup truck as he tried to navigate the back roads toward his small farm outside Cookeville. The rain was falling so hard that his windshield wipers couldn't keep up, and the normally reliable country roads had become rivers of muddy water that threatened to sweep vehicles away. "Should have stayed at the mill," Marcus muttered to himself, gripping the steering wheel tighter as his truck hit another deep puddle that sent water splashing over the hood. At 6 feet tall and weighing 210 pounds of muscle earned through decades of military discipline and hard physical labor, Marcus wasn't easily intimidated, but Mother Nature was proving to be a formidable opponent. The flooding had come on faster than anyone had predicted. Mill Creek, which normally meandered peacefully through the valley at a depth of 2 or 3 feet, was now a 30-foot-wide torrent carrying everything from uprooted trees to somebody's chicken coop. The local emergency services were overwhelmed, and the radio crackled constantly with reports of water rescues, road closures, and people stranded on their rooftops. Marcus was navigating around a massive oak tree that had fallen across Highway 56 when he first heard it, a sound that cut through the roar of wind and rain like a knife through his heart. It was the unmistakable cry of an animal in distress, high-pitched and desperate, coming from the direction of the swollen creek. Military training had taught Marcus to assess situations quickly and make decisions based on incomplete information, but this decision seemed to make itself. He pulled his truck as close to the creek bank as he dared and grabbed the high-powered flashlight he always kept in his glove compartment. What he saw in the beam of his flashlight made his blood run cold. About 50 yards downstream, a tiny German Shepherd puppy was clinging to a partially submerged log, his small body being battered by the current while debris rushed past him at deadly speeds. The puppy couldn't have been more than 3 months old, with the distinctive black and tan markings of his breed clearly visible even through the muddy water that soaked his fur. "Jesus Christ," Marcus breathed, his military mind immediately calculating odds and options. The puppy was too far from shore to reach with any kind of improvised rescue device, and the current was too strong for the little guy to swim to safety on his own. Worse, the log he was clinging to was already starting to shift under the pressure of the flood, threatening to roll and dump him into the deepest part of the current. Marcus had maybe 2 minutes to act before the situation became irreversibly tragic. He could see the puppy's strength failing as the cold water and constant battering took their toll. The little dog's cries were becoming weaker, more desperate, and Marcus realized he was probably watching the final moments of a young life that had barely begun. Every rational part of his brain told him it was too dangerous. The current would be strong enough to kill a grown man, let alone a puppy, and jumping into that water would likely just add his name to the casualty list. But as Marcus looked into those dark eyes reflecting his flashlight beam, he heard his drill sergeant's voice from 25 years ago. "Thompson, sometimes being a soldier means making the hard choice to do what's right, even when it's stupid." Marcus Thompson took off his boots and prepared to do something very stupid. Marcus had survived firefights in Afghanistan and helicopter crashes in Iraq, but nothing had tested his survival skills quite like the raging waters of Mill Creek. The moment he entered the flood, the current hit him like a physical assault, trying to sweep him downstream toward the same fate that threatened the German Shepherd puppy clinging desperately to the log. The water was shockingly cold, probably in the 50s, and filled with debris that turned every floating stick into a potential weapon. Marcus had tied a climbing rope around his waist and secured it to his truck's trailer hitch, but 50 feet of rope seemed pitifully inadequate when measured against the fury of the flood. Fighting the current required every technique Marcus had learned during military water survival training. He couldn't fight the water directly. That was a losing battle that would exhaust him in minutes. Instead, he had to work with the flow, using its energy to help propel him in the direction he wanted to go while constantly fighting to keep his head above the surface. The puppy was still clinging to the log when Marcus reached him, but barely. The little German shepherd was shivering violently, his small body pushed to the limits of endurance by the cold water and constant struggle. When Marcus appeared beside him, the puppy's reaction was immediate and heartbreaking. Instead of the fear that might be expected from a wild or feral animal, the young dog showed obvious relief and seemed to understand that help had arrived. "Easy, buddy," Marcus called over the roar of the water, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "I've got you now." Getting a secure grip on the puppy while fighting the current proved to be one of the most challenging rescues Marcus had ever attempted. The little dog was soaked and slippery, and every movement threatened to dislodge him from the log that was keeping them both from being swept away. But what struck Marcus immediately was the puppy's behavior. Instead of panicking or struggling, the young German shepherd seemed to understand what Marcus was trying to do and actually cooperated with the rescue effort. "You're not like other puppies, are you?" Marcus murmured as he finally managed to secure the dog against his chest with one arm while maintaining his grip on the log with the other. The journey back to shore took nearly 20 minutes of careful maneuvering, with Marcus using the rope as a guide while fighting against a current that seemed determined to claim both their lives. The puppy remained remarkably calm throughout the ordeal, pressing close to Marcus's chest and occasionally looking up at his rescuer with dark, intelligent eyes that seemed far too wise for such a young animal. When they finally reached the muddy bank, both man and dog collapsed in exhaustion. Marcus lay on his back in the rain, holding the puppy against his chest, feeling the little heart beating rapidly but steadily. The German shepherd looked up at him with an expression that seemed almost like gratitude, then did something that would be the first hint of the extraordinary nature of this rescue. The puppy carefully positioned himself so that his small body was providing as much warmth as possible to Marcus, who was beginning to show signs of hypothermia. It was a deliberate, intelligent action that went far beyond normal puppy behavior. "Who are you, little guy?" Marcus asked softly, studying the young dog's features in the beam of his flashlight. The puppy was clearly purebred, with perfect German shepherd markings and the kind of bone structure that suggested excellent breeding. This wasn't a farm dog or a backyard puppy. This was an animal that had been carefully bred for specific qualities. As Marcus carried the puppy to his truck, he noticed something else unusual. Around the young dog's neck, barely visible beneath his thick puppy fur, was a small collar with what appeared to be some kind of identification tag. But it wasn't until they reached the warmth and light of his truck that Marcus would discover the first clue to a mystery that would change both their lives forever. Back in the warmth of his truck with the heater running full blast, Marcus finally got a good look at what he had rescued from the flood. The German shepherd puppy was indeed exceptional, probably 12 weeks old, with perfect breed characteristics and a calm, intelligent demeanor that was remarkable for such a young animal who had just survived a traumatic experience. But it was the collar that made Marcus's blood run cold. As he gently dried the puppy with an old towel from behind his seat, the small metal tag became clearly visible. Instead of a typical pet identification tag with a name and phone number, this tag bore the distinctive logo of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and a series of numbers that Marcus recognized from his military days as a federal agency identification code. TBI K9 Unit Candidate 847 Alpha, property of Tennessee State Police, was engraved in small, precise letters, along with a phone number that Marcus knew would connect him to law enforcement rather than a worried family. "Well, I'll be damned," Marcus said softly, looking down at the puppy who was now curled contentedly in his lap. "You're not lost, are you, buddy? You're AWOL." The implications hit Marcus immediately. This wasn't just any German shepherd puppy. This was a police dog in training, probably worth thousands of dollars and representing months of careful breeding and early development. More importantly, if the puppy was here in the flood zone, something had gone seriously wrong with whatever operation or training exercise he was supposed to be part of. Marcus pulled out his cell phone and dialed the number on the tag, not sure what to expect but knowing he had to report what he'd found. The phone rang twice before a woman's voice answered with professional urgency. "TBI K9 Unit, Sergeant Patricia Wells speaking. How can I help you?" "Sergeant Wells, this is Marcus Thompson. I'm calling because I just pulled one of your dogs out of Mill Creek during the flood. Tag number 847 Alpha." The silence on the other end of the line stretched for several seconds before Sergeant Wells responded, and Marcus could hear the mixture of relief and confusion in her voice. "Mr. Thompson, Did you say 847 Alpha? Are you certain? Yes, ma'am. German Shepherd puppy about 12 weeks old, wearing a TBI collar. He's safe, but I need to know what's going on here. Mr. Thompson, I need you to listen to me very carefully, Sergeant Wells said, and Marcus could hear the sound of papers shuffling and computers' keyboards clicking in the background. That puppy has been missing for 4 days. He was being transported to a training facility when the vehicle he was in disappeared. We've been searching for both the dog and his handler, Officer Jennifer Martinez, but the flood has made search operations impossible. The pieces of the puzzle began clicking into place in Marcus's mind. Sergeant, are you telling me this puppy was in a police vehicle that went missing during the storm? Mr. Thompson, I can't give you all the details over the phone, but what I can tell you is that Officer Martinez was transporting 4 K-9 candidates to our training facility when her vehicle disappeared somewhere in your area 3 days ago. We haven't been able to locate the vehicle or make contact with Officer Martinez. If you found one of our dogs, it means you're probably very close to where we need to be searching. Marcus looked down at the puppy, who was watching him with those intelligent dark eyes that seemed to understand every word of the conversation. Sergeant Wells, I think this little guy might be trying to tell us something. He's been acting strange since I pulled him out of the water, like he knows something we don't. What do you mean? Marcus wasn't sure how to explain the feeling he had, but his military instincts were telling him that this rescue was about more than just saving a lost puppy. I think he wants me to follow him somewhere. I know that sounds crazy, but this dog is trying to communicate something. As if responding to Marcus's words, the puppy stood up in his lap and moved to the passenger window, pressing his nose against the glass and whining softly while looking in a specific direction. Upstream toward the headwaters of Mill Creek where the flood had started. Sergeant Wells, Marcus said slowly, I think we need to organize a search party. And I think this puppy is going to show us exactly where to look. Within 2 hours of Marcus's phone call, the area around Mill Creek had transformed into a full-scale search and rescue operation. Despite the continuing storm and dangerous flood conditions, teams from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, local sheriff's departments, and volunteer rescue organizations had converged on the coordinates Marcus provided. Sergeant Patricia Wells arrived in a TBI command vehicle, a compact woman in her 40s with graying brown hair and the no-nonsense demeanor of someone who had spent 20 years in law enforcement. Her expertise in K-9 operations was legendary throughout Tennessee, and the 4 missing puppies represented 2 years of careful breeding and selection for the state's elite police dog program. Mr. Thompson, she said, extending a firm handshake as Marcus climbed out of his truck with the German Shepherd puppy in his arms. I can't thank you enough for what you've done. But I have to ask, you mentioned that the puppy seems to be trying to communicate something? Marcus felt slightly foolish explaining his hunch to a room full of law enforcement professionals, but his military experience had taught him to trust his instincts even when they didn't make logical sense. Sergeant, I know this is going to sound strange, but this dog has been trying to get my attention since I pulled him out of the water. He keeps looking in a specific direction and acting like he wants me to follow him. Dr. Amanda Foster, the veterinarian who served as the TBI's animal behavior specialist, knelt down to examine the puppy while Marcus talked. Her assessment was immediate and concerning. This dog is definitely exhibiting stress behaviors consistent with trauma, but there's something else, she said, looking up at Sergeant Wells. His behavior suggests he's been trained to some degree already. The way he's positioning himself, his alertness level, his response to commands. This isn't typical puppy behavior. What are you saying? Marcus asked. I'm saying that Officer Martinez may have been further along in the training process with these dogs than we realized, Dr. Foster replied. If this puppy was already learning basic search and rescue protocols, he might actually be trying to lead us to something. The implications were sobering. If the puppy had indeed been trained to some degree, and if he was trying to communicate the location of something important, it could mean that Officer Martinez and the other 3 puppies were in serious danger. Lieutenant David Chin, the search coordinator, made the decision that would prove crucial. Mr. Thompson, would you be willing to work with us on this? If that dog trusts you and you're willing to follow where he leads, we'll provide backup and safety support. Marcus looked down at the puppy, who was watching the entire conversation with remarkable focus for such a young animal. When their eyes met, the German Shepherd's tail wagged once, as if he understood what was being discussed. I'll do whatever it takes, Marcus said. But I want to understand what we might be walking into. What was Officer Martinez's mission? Why was she transporting these dogs during a hurricane? Sergeant Wells exchanged glances with Lieutenant Chin before responding. Mr. Thompson, Officer Martinez wasn't just transporting dogs to a training facility. She was en route to a federal operation, a search for a missing child who disappeared 3 days ago in the national forest. These dogs were being brought in as emergency search assets because of their advanced breeding and early training. The revelation hit Marcus like a physical blow. Somewhere in the flooded wilderness of the Cumberland Valley, a police officer, 3 police dogs in training, and potentially a missing child were all depending on the intelligence and instincts of a 12-week-old German Shepherd puppy. "What's the child's name?" Marcus asked quietly. "Emma Rodriguez. She's 8 years old and she's been missing for 72 hours. Marcus looked down at the puppy one more time, and this time he was certain he saw something more than animal intelligence in those dark eyes. He saw purpose. "Okay, buddy," he said to the young German Shepherd. "Show us where we need to go." The search began at first light, with Marcus and the German Shepherd puppy leading a carefully coordinated team through the treacherous terrain of the flooded Cumberland Valley. What followed over the next 6 hours would challenge everything the search team thought they knew about animal intelligence and the bonds that can form between humans and dogs. The puppy, whom Dr. Foster had confirmed was indeed showing signs of advanced training despite his young age, demonstrated an uncanny ability to navigate through the flood-damaged landscape. Instead of the random wandering that might be expected from a traumatized animal, the young German Shepherd moved with clear purpose, frequently stopping to check wind direction and consistently leading the team toward higher ground that avoided the most dangerous flood areas. "I've never seen anything like this," Sergeant Wells told Marcus as they followed the puppy through a grove of storm-damaged trees. "Even our fully trained K9s would struggle to maintain this kind of focus after what he's been through." Marcus had developed a communication system with the puppy that surprised everyone, including himself. The young dog would stop and look back when he needed the humans to slow down, would circle back when someone in the team fell behind, and would alert them to dangerous terrain by sitting and refusing to move forward until the hazard was cleared. "It's like he's been trained for search and rescue coordination," observed Dr. Foster, who was documenting the puppy's behavior for potential use in future K9 training programs. "But that's impossible. He's too young to have received that level of training." The breakthrough came when they reached a section of Mill Creek where the flood had receded enough to reveal a partially submerged vehicle. It was Officer Jennifer Martinez's police SUV, overturned and wedged against a massive fallen tree about 3 miles upstream from where Marcus had found the puppy. "That's her vehicle," Sergeant Wells confirmed, her voice tight with concern as the dive team prepared to search the wreckage. "But if the puppy came from here, how did he end up so far downstream?" The answer came from the puppy himself. Instead of approaching the overturned vehicle, the young German Shepherd led them to a small cave formed by the fallen tree's root system, about 50 yards from the crash site. His behavior changed immediately. His tail began wagging for the first time since the rescue, and he began making soft whining sounds that clearly indicated excitement rather than distress. "He's found something," Marcus said, dropping to his knees to peer into the cave opening. What he saw inside made him call out immediately for the medical team. Officer Jennifer Martinez was alive, conscious, and protecting not only 3 German Shepherd puppies but also 8-year-old Emma Rodriguez, the missing child she had been en route to search for when the flood struck. Martinez had managed to pull Emma from another overturned vehicle, her family's car that had been swept off the road during the storm's initial surge. "How did you know we were here?" Officer Martinez asked weakly as the rescue team worked to extract her and Emma from their improvised shelter. Marcus looked down at the puppy, who was now reunited with his 3 siblings and showing clear signs of relief and satisfaction. "We had a very good guide." The full story emerged over the following hours. Officer Martinez had been transporting the 4 specially bred German Shepherd puppies to assist in the search for Emma when the flood had swept both vehicles off the road. She had managed to rescue Emma from her family's car and had taken shelter in the cave with all 4 puppies, but had been unable to signal for help due to injuries sustained in the crash. The puppy that Marcus had rescued, later named Hero by the rescue team, had apparently left the cave on his own to seek help, somehow understanding that his family needed assistance that only humans could provide. "He saved all of us," Emma said softly as she was loaded into the ambulance, her small hand reaching out to touch Hero's head. "He's the bravest dog in the world." Marcus looked down at Hero, who was now sitting calmly beside him as if the entire rescue operation had been just another day's work. "I think you might be right," he said. 3 weeks after the rescue, Marcus Thompson found himself facing a decision he had never expected to make. Hero, the German Shepherd puppy who had orchestrated one of the most remarkable rescues in Tennessee law enforcement history, was ready to return to his training program. But he was also showing clear signs that he had bonded with Marcus in ways that went far beyond typical human-animal relationships. The puppy's attachment to you is unprecedented, Dr. Foster explained during a meeting at the TBI training facility. In 20 years of animal behavior research, I've never documented a case where a dog this young showed this level of loyalty and communication with a human they'd known for such a short time. Sergeant Wells nodded in agreement. Marcus, Hero's performance during the rescue operation has already revolutionized our understanding of canine intelligence and training potential. But we have to consider what's best for him long term. The statistics were compelling. Hero had led a search team through 3 miles of dangerous terrain, had accurately identified the location of 5 endangered individuals, and had demonstrated problem-solving abilities that typically took months of intensive training to develop. The TBI wanted to fast-track him into their elite canine program, where he could potentially save dozens of lives over his career. But there was another consideration that complicated the decision. Hero had been living with Marcus since the rescue, and the bond between them had deepened in ways that amazed everyone who observed it. The puppy, now 14 weeks old and growing rapidly, had learned to anticipate Marcus's needs, had shown protective instincts toward him, and had even demonstrated an uncanny ability to sense Marcus's occasional nightmares from his military service and provide comfort during difficult moments. "He's helped me in ways I didn't even know I needed," Marcus admitted to Officer Martinez, who had become a friend during her recovery from the flood injuries. "I came home from the service with some issues I thought I'd dealt with, but Hero seems to understand things about me that I don't even understand about myself." Jennifer Martinez, now fully recovered and back on duty, brought a unique perspective to the decision. "Marcus, I've worked with dozens of police dogs and I can tell you that Hero is special even by those standards. But I've also seen what happens when a dog bonds this strongly with a handler. Sometimes the best police dogs are the ones who choose their own partners." The solution came from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Shin approached Marcus with a proposal that would benefit everyone involved. The TBI was interested in expanding their K9 program to include civilian volunteer handlers for specific types of search and rescue operations. Marcus, with his military background and proven ability to work with Hero, would be an ideal candidate for the pilot program. "You'd go through the same training as our regular K9 officers," Lieutenant Shin explained. "Hero would get the professional development he needs to reach his potential, but he'd be working with the partner he's already chosen. And you'd both be available for the kind of search and rescue operations where his unique abilities could save lives." The decision required Marcus to make significant changes to his life. He would need to reduce his hours at the lumber mill, complete an intensive training program, and commit to being available for emergency calls at all hours. But as he looked down at Hero, who was sitting beside his chair with the alert attention that had become his trademark, Marcus realized the choice had already been made. "When do we start training?" he asked. Hero's tail wagged once, and Marcus could swear he saw satisfaction in the young dog's intelligent eyes. They had found each other in a flood that could have killed them both, and now they were going to spend their lives making sure other people didn't face those same dangers alone. "Welcome to the TBI K9 unit," Sergeant Wells said with a smile. "Both of you." 6 months after their fateful meeting in the floodwaters of Mill Creek, Marcus Thompson and Hero had become one of the most successful search and rescue teams in Tennessee history. Their partnership, which had begun with an act of courage and mutual salvation, had evolved into something that redefined how law enforcement understood the potential of human canine bonds. Hero, now 8 months old and weighing 60 pounds, had exceeded every expectation of the TBI training program. His natural intelligence, combined with the unique communication he had developed with Marcus, made them ideally suited for the most challenging search and rescue operations. They had successfully located 12 missing persons, including 3 children who had been given up for dead by other search teams. "What Hero and Marcus have accomplished together goes beyond anything we thought possible," Dr. Foster explained during a presentation to the International Association of Chiefs of Police. "They've demonstrated that the right partnership between human and dog can achieve results that neither could accomplish alone." Marcus had discovered that his military background translated perfectly to K9 operations, but it was his relationship with Hero that made their team extraordinary. The dog seemed to understand not just Marcus's commands, but his intentions and even his emotional state. During search operations, they functioned as a single unit, with Hero often anticipating Marcus's decisions and providing information that helped guide their strategy. The most remarkable case had come just 2 weeks earlier, when they were called to search for a missing hiker in the Great Smoky Mountains. Traditional search methods had failed for 3 days, but Hero led Marcus directly to a hidden ravine where the hiker was trapped with a broken leg, unable to call for help. The rescue had taken less than 4 hours from the time they arrived on scene. It's like Hiro can see things the rest of us miss, Lieutenant Shin observed. He doesn't just track scents, he seems to understand the psychology of lost people and predict where they might go. But perhaps the most meaningful aspect of their partnership was how it had transformed both Marcus and Hiro as individuals. Marcus had found a sense of purpose that had been missing since leaving the military, while Hiro had developed into a confident, capable working dog who clearly loved his job. Emma Rodriguez, the 8-year-old girl they had rescued from the cave, had become an unofficial mascot for their team. She visited regularly with her family, and her bond with Hiro remained strong. She had started a fundraising campaign at her school to buy equipment for search and rescue teams, and had already raised enough money to purchase 2 emergency shelters and a new communication system. Hiro taught me that being brave isn't about not being scared, Emma said during a school presentation about their rescue. It's about doing the right thing even when you are scared. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation had been so impressed with the Marcus-Hiro partnership that they had expanded the civilian handler program, recruiting 5 additional teams and establishing a new training facility specifically designed to develop human canine bonds. Marcus had been asked to help develop the curriculum, sharing the techniques he and Hiro had discovered through trial and error. Officer Jennifer Martinez, who had fully recovered from her flood injuries, had become the coordinator of the new program. Marcus and Hiro proved that the strongest canine partnerships aren't just about training, she said. They're about finding 2 beings who complement each other perfectly. As Marcus and Hiro prepared for another search operation on a snowy December morning, Marcus reflected on how much his life had changed since that stormy night when he pulled a drowning puppy from Mill Creek. He had gained not just a partner but a best friend, a purpose, and a role in saving lives that felt like the culmination of everything he had learned in his military service. Hiro looked up at him with those intelligent dark eyes that seemed to understand everything, his tail wagging with the enthusiasm of a dog who knew he was about to do important work with his favorite human. "Ready to go save some lives, buddy?" Marcus asked. Hiro's answer was a confident bark that said he was ready for anything as long as they faced it together. If Hiro and Marcus's incredible journey from flood rescue to life-saving partnership touched your heart, remember that search and rescue teams across America work tirelessly to bring missing people home safely every day. This remarkable German Shepherd proved that courage, intelligence, and loyalty can overcome any obstacle when the right partners find each other. Subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories of the extraordinary bonds between humans and animals that make miracles possible. Like this video if you believe in the power of second chances and the incredible potential that exists when we choose to help those in need, and share it with someone who needs to be reminded that heroes come in all sizes and sometimes the greatest rescues happen when we least expect them. Have you ever experienced a moment when an animal changed your life or helped you in an unexpected way? Share your story in the comments below. Let's celebrate the incredible animals who remind us that love, loyalty, and courage can triumph over any challenge.